Okay, good afternoon, everybody. It is Sunday, January 7th, 2024. It is Kaf Vav Tevet, the 26th of Tevet, Hatafshin Pei Dalid. And I'm Reva Emunah. We're recording from Tzfat. And this is Rebbe Nachman on the two goats, part 3. Okay, so we are in Hilchot Tefillin. We're in Likutei Halachot, Hilchot Tefillin Halacha Vav, and we're still exploring Seif Kaf Gimel. Okay, so we started to say last time, a lot of some of the many places where this theme of two goats shows up in the Torah. And so we wanted to add a few more. So I'm not sure if we said on the last recording that we spoke about when Tamar was with Yehuda, when she dressed up as a Zonah, and Yehuda asked her what she wanted for payment. And of course, ta-da, she said 2 goats, right? And he didn't have 2 goats with him. So he left his ring and his staff and his cloak as collateral. And then later he sent her the 2 goats and she sent him back the collateral. Okay. So this theme is coming up again. So we can also understand these 2 goats as the right brain and the left brain. It really matters also, like which goat was conceived first and what goat comes out first. We're going to see a little bit later. The idea of also one goat being chaos or tohu, otherwise called Esav energy, and the other goat being called Seder or Tikkun, or the world of order, right? So we have chaos and order and their relationship in everything. And something that we might also understand from this is that when Esav gave up the blessing, when Esav gave up the birthright, right, it both happened before the story of the goat. There was a different story of the goat. Remember on the day that Avram Avinu died? And Yaakov was cooking like a goat stew, a lentil stew. And Esav came back from the field and hunting and was so hungry. And he said, pour some of that red stuff, down my throat. Halitani, just pour it down my throat. And Yaakov said, well, what will you give me in exchange for the food? What do you want? I want the rights of the firstborn. Okay. And he said, yeah, I don't want to do that anyway. In those days, the right of the firstborn was actually to be chosen for service, for loving kindness, was to be the Kohen of the family, right? Every family had a Kohen. In other words, that child would be in loving service to the parents. And it was really all about giving and caretaking. And Esav did not want that job. On a mystical level, though, it's talking about creating light from darkness, turning darkness into light, right? And another way that we say that in the language of the Mekubalim and the Hasidic masters is connecting, right? Or moving from tohu, or darkness and chaos, right? Or even like, it's interesting because of course it's the world of Kabbalah, so it holds paradox. It's both kind of like the raw creative force, which is really about creating, but it also has an equally raw destructive force, right? Because part of creativity is breaking down what's old and then making something, putting the pieces back together in some, new and wild way. So tohu is known, especially like in the teachings of Rav Kook, that again, there's not one energy that's good or bad. They're complementary and sometimes opposing forces in the universe. And the tohu energy it can be very destructive. In other words, it blows up order in order to reveal something new. And it's going to be the opposite energy of everything finding its place and everything knowing its place, because that's order, right? So that's in the world of chaos, nothing knows its place, and almost nothing knows its value, because part of knowing your value is also finding your right place in things. So we have this idea in Kabbalah and Hasidut again and again of strengthening the chasadim me'al hagvurot, right? The right hand over the left hand, the right side encircling the left side, right? So we have this idea even of like Smolo tachat leoshi v'yamino techat keli from Shir Shirim, from Song of Songs, right? His left hand is under me, but his right hand is encircling me. And again, that gives us this image of placing the chasadim, or the energies of loving kindness, strengthening them in the world, that they should be stronger than the energies of din, of judgment, of criticism, of tearing down things, right? So the energies of connection and should be stronger than the energies of destruction in the world. Okay, so again, we're going to see that with the two goats. And so it's really important to add here that when Esav really kind of didn't want this blessing, this birthright, right? Remember that the Kohen is kind of the poster child of loving kindness and service, and their special bracha, right, later becomes Levarech Amo Yisrael be'ahava, to bless with love. And the blessing itself is the blessings of peace, right? The Kohanic blessing ends with, right, Vayasem lecha shalom, right, and may the Creator put peace on you, right? So it's really important. Like sometimes when we talk about, because we're going to see the word goat, right, and is directly connected, of course, to the word oz, right, or azut, which in its simplest level, before we get into like the holy chutzpah part of it, is the simple meaning of the word means power. So we're really talking about here an exploration of power. And we're going to talk about the power of self, like willpower, and then Hashem's power. And okay, so one of the things before I'm getting ahead of myself, that we want to talk about with these powers is we're going to be exploring and talking about something very connected to 12-step work, like being powerless and finding a power that's greater than myself, right? All of those ideas and concepts are deeply connected to this Torah, that there's like a humbleness when I really have come to the end of my personal human power. And it can, when it's really far in the side of shadow, it can be an experience of not humbleness, but losing self-respect and losing connection to personal dignity and losing connection to self-value and my worth. And this is a theme that Rebbe Nachman is exploring again and again and again. Like there's a powerless where I just feel crushed and humiliated, and that's the kind of the energy that Shaul HaMelech seems to have had, that I'm not worth defending. I'm not worth sticking up for, chas v'shalom, right? And because I'm not worth anything, I'm not worth fighting for. That kind of an energy, which is it's like the evil twin. That's why there's two goats, right? Of the energy of true humbleness, which is like, I know that I'm a vessel for God's power. I know that I'm very powerful as an instrument of the Creator's power, because that's just something that we're going to be looking at. But we really want to kind of shed light here on Esav's giving up the bracha and Yaakov taking the birthright are directly actually connected. The reason that Rivka encouraged him to take the birthright is because the birthright actually is to take on the spiritual mantle, the spiritual mission of making order from chaos, right? Of connecting the lights of tohu or chaos and putting them into vessels of tikkun, of order, and therefore making more beauty in the world and more harmony in the world. In other words, like balancing all these polarities. And obviously that's a tremendous amount of work. And Esav comes from the world of chaos, right? The energies of, again, it's not just the person Esav, right? We all have Esav inside of us as well. This is also an archetype. And it's this archetype of what we call tohu energy. And we see, right, that when he came in from the field, he had just come from Shamishmar, right? But he had just come from in one day robbing and raping and murdering, right? And it's the Torah is telling us partially so that we prick up our ears and we understand that, right, he's living in like the very extreme selfish and undisciplined energies of just like total wild, but right, these energies can manifest as kind of a super wonderful creative wildness, and they can also cross over into a wildness of like being an ish sayad, a hunter, right, of preying off of other people and being a destructive and destroying force and a consumptive force, right? Remember, haliteni na mina doma doma de, just doma doma zep, just pour some of that. Right, it's the voice of what we know inside of us as the addict, right? Just give me some of that stuff, pour it down my throat, right? He doesn't even have time to like sit, just pour it down my throat, that energy. So something that we can understand now when we really take a step back from Am Yisrael, right, is the double portion that Yitzchak Avinu gave, and this blessing is a pretty tall order blessing. It's not just a blessing like giving over all the goodness. It's that Esav basically said, I can't and don't want to do this mission of elevating all the chaotic energy and reconnecting it back to source and back to the divine and revealing the light even within the chaos and bringing right, restore, we call it tikkun. This is the word that we talk about, tikkun, right, which is very similar to the Hebrew word for tinok, to be like a baby, meaning to renew ourselves, to start over, to learn how to work with all the different energies and not let the dark energies just take over everything. But also it's not a matter of like getting rid of the dark energies. It's to shine light into the dark energies, to free them of their burdens, to leval nidach mimenu nidach, right? To almost go after every part of consciousness, every story, every painful story, every memory, and offer it light and compassion, listen deeply to it, unburden it from its lies, right? Like its false stories about self and about God and about love and about relationship and about the world and about, right, how it works and about other, right? And we call that leval nidach mimenu nidach, which the Rebbe, with the Lubavitcher Rebbe said, also Rebbe Nachman talks about this a lot, is no spark will be left behind. Like, right, no part of the life force will be forever banished and trapped in separation, in pain, in darkness, in rejection and abandonment. It's really separation is really the word. Okay. So Yaakov Avinu took upon himself actually the double portion for the whole world to right, to he originally started out as an Ishtam Yoshev Ohalim, right? He started as a simple guy who just has a simple, sweet connection with God and is sitting in his tent, right, and studying Torah. And he got thrust into this role when Rivka realized that Esav wasn't going to, because again, like the holy masters all talk about how the energies of tohu, or the lights of tohu, as we call them, and sometimes we call it in English, the lights of chaos, right? Like pure potential is, we call it, it's a higher light actually than the lights of tikkun, or the lights of order. And you can hear why, because potential, it almost like it covers more ground, right? Like it holds more possibility. It's just pure life force. And it hasn't gone through any kind of binary yes, no system yet. So it's holding all possibility and all probability. And it has obviously it's an extremely powerful energy then, right? So the Mekubalim come and talk about how, again, how these switches happen, right? And we're going to see a lot with like the switching of the goats of like that famous Rashi where he talks about almost like a test tube, right? And if you take like a test tube and you put two little rocks in it, and let's say you put one blue and one red. Well, the blue one went in first, but when it's time to take them out of the test tube, the red one is going to come out first, right? So he says that's like the conception of Esav and Yaakov, right? How really Yaakov was conceived first. And so when they came out, like Esav came out first. But this isn't like a fight about property rights or like who really gets the bracha. That's what's so interesting, that it's kind of in the space again now in terms of all the politics that are in the space right now, because it's so beyond that from the lessons and the language of the Mekubalim, or the mystics and the holy masters. It's talking about the order of the lights and the order of the energies, and who comes first. Oh, hi, honey. And who comes first, like the chaos energy, which is called tohu, or the tikkun energy, which is called order or fixing, right? And here it's talking about, and when we had the Yom Kippur, the avodah on Yom Kippurim, or the service of the two goats on Yom Kippur, it specifically was two male goats. It was two azim, right? Two male goats. And most of them, Mepharshim say, right, this is talking about two masculine energies, also known as Esav and Yaakov, right? But we have these two goats again that are going to show up as Leah and Rachel, right? It's again the again these two energies of it's even going to show up later as the continuation of Leah or Malchus Beis David, Mashiach. Sorry, also, but Mashiach ben David, right? Mashiach from the line of David, otherwise known as the Olam Diskasia, or the hidden world. And then we also have Mashiach ben Yosef, or the Mashiach from the line of Yosef, also known as the Olam Diisgalia, or the revealed world. Another way we can understand the hidden world is the world of the soul, and the revealed world as the world of the body, right? So these are all these explorations around energies and around polarities, and what are we trying to do in the world energetically, right? And the bottom line is, right, that the takeaway, if any of this has made your head spin, is that the purpose of Am Yisrael is to take the Orot de Tohu and put them into Kelim de Tikkun. In other words, to take the most passionate, creative, wild, right, energy, and to channel it in ways that foster more creativity and more connection and more healing and more compassion. And in doing so, we also give kavod to the creator, right? In other words, like when the kids are getting along really well and they're making like a cute play for the parents, it gives like nachat ruach, right? It gives like a sense of deep accomplishment and joy and fulfillment to the parents, right? And also it reflects well on the parents, right? When the kids are getting along really beautifully and they're harmonizing and they're collaborating and they're having fun together and they're making creative things together. It's not only is it fun for the kids, but it also reflects well on the parents, which is part of what we mean when we say like a Kiddush Hashem, or we say that it's Ma'aleh Kvod Hashem Ba'olam, right? It reveals Hashem's honor and glory into the world. Okay, so again, Rebbe Nachman is going to be talking a lot about these energies of Tohu and Tikkun, and also even within us, right? That we start to even find within ourselves that there's destructive voices inside of us, like almost voices that want to harm us or weaken us or take us, even out of life or out of the picture. Again, through the lens of IFS, internal family systems, usually when we start listening to these very, very highly destructive parts, they have a story, they have a reason of what happened to them that they got so imbalanced. And again, underneath it all is usually this weird reversal where they actually think that they have to like hyper protect us. They're called protectors or managers. But whatever the case is, and right, we speak a lot before we go into the text. We speak a lot about how Esav, eventually there's going to be this reconciliation between the two brothers, between the two polarities, which includes all of this, tohu and tikkun, and body and soul. But really mostly what we're talking about is the one power, right? The power of Hashem, and the illusion that there's many powers. That's another thing that we're looking at here. Like, what is the source? It's all an exploration around power, right? Because the word for goat in Hebrew, which is Ez, is also, as we said, Oz, power, right? So it's a really an an exploration. What we're exploring here is what's the source of true power? How do I express that power? Esav had a power over other people, as we said, like, right, murdering and raping and stealing. That's a power over other people, rooted in fear, obviously, right? And then there's a power that we can exert over other people. That's the power to bring out their own inner light, right? That's also a power. We call that the power of Mashiach. The Mashiach from the word Moshech, even though it's spelled differently, with a kaf and a chet, it's connected, and it's almost to be like a magnet, right? To have the power to draw the light out, and in oneself, but also in others. And that's what we said, to strengthen the chasadim me'al hagvurot, right? To strengthen the right side over the left side. And we're not banishing the left side. Where, you know, how we have all these halachas, like, people who don't know this will probably think this is crazy on the recording, but like, right, if we have a coat, and then again, assuming that we're right-handed, so we put our right arm in the coat first, or we put on our right sock first, we put on our right shoe first, right? It's not just to drive us crazy with little picky-uni details. It's to constantly be in a state of awareness, mindfulness. It's about being mindful to that the energy that I place before me, first and foremost, is the energy of the right side. It's the energy of chasadim. I try to approach every situation with my right foot forward, right? Meaning literally to choose the path of loving kindness. And we have all kinds of interesting halachot around this, like, if you're lost and you don't know which way to go, so the Torah tells you, if you're lost and you don't know where you're going, turn right. And again, it's a meditation on from the idea of right as being the side of expansiveness, like expand your consciousness. If you're lost, choose to expand your consciousness, choose to pause and breathe deeply and take in more light and more of Hashem's presence, right? And choose and bring your system into the system of loving kindness, right? These are all these sort of sweet halachot. Okay, so specifically, part of what Rebbe Nachman is exploring here, we all know this, right? It's very much like a very, very much like a 12-step program of why do I start in 12 steps by saying, like, why is step one, I admit I'm powerless and my life has become unmanageable. Like, I'm out of power. I have tried with my own personal power to change, to control my own behavior without success, to control other behavior also, obviously, without success, to control places, to control things, to control outcomes, to control my own life story. And I keep coming up against the limitations of that personal power, right? And I realize that my problem is that I don't have enough power and I'm not plugged into the real source of power. So these are all these kind of explanations around Ez, around Oz, around power. And again, he speaks a lot about the polarities of becoming powerless in a real way, which is like the beginning of the healing journey. That's a true humbleness of like, I'm empty of ego self and I'm now teachable. I'm now humble. I'm now ready to receive Hashem's guidance. I've tried it my way and my way didn't work. And I kept trying it my way and I kept forcing my way and I kept trying to force results. And I kept trying to control. And you'll see people showing up in all kinds of manager roles, like trying to control the way I look, so that I can control other people's reactions towards me, and controlling what I eat. Again, so I'll look a certain way, so people will like me or think a certain way about me. Right, controlling that I have to look successful and be successful. Again, a way of controlling that I'll have enough money and I'll be safe in the world. And right, like all these ways that we're controlling, and obviously all motivated primarily by very, very, very deep fear, right? And then Rebbe Nachman is going to start again exploring maybe two more things, right? I mean, whatever, these are really deep texts, so it will just take as long as it takes, you know. But two more ideas is we mentioned in the last, maybe three, because we mentioned in the last class about poor, pei vav resh poor, not the word poor, like not having money, but poor in Hebrew, as in Yom Kippur and as in Purim, right? And even connected to the word para, right? Like a cow. And the word pool is very, very closely linked to what is your lot in life, right? Pooling has to do with your lots, like what side do you fall out on, right? What is your lot in life? What does Hashem send you? And is it what you want? And is it not what you want? And where does prayer fall into that? And right, how do we meet our lot? And then he goes on, and this is really beautiful, and because we have in there the word kapara, right? Kapara, and atonement, right? Yom Kippur from the word kapara. And again, you'll see the pur in, right, the pei resh inside the word kapara. And it's now we have another question, and this is such a beautiful and deep question. So kapara, the way we use it as an atonement is like, you know, the little like Moroccan safta, and like her beautiful special china plate breaks, and she has all her cookies on it, and she says like, oh, Lonora kapara laich, nishamiz metuka sheli kapara laich, right? What does she mean by that? She means like, okay, I lost my favorite plate and it broke and it shattered and all the cookies fell on the floor, but it's a kapara, meaning like it's an energy switch out, right? Like better that if there was some destructive energy in the space, that the destructive energy should fall out on the plate and on the cookies and not on the beloved, you know, children and grandchildren, right? That's where we get that word kapara. Kapara is that there's a destructive energy, right? And somehow it seems, or we're going to be exploring, like, can we redirect that destructive energy, like do a switch out, right? And you're going to see again with the two goats, Ephraim and Menashe. You're going to see again with the two goats that, remember we said, you know, that Rivka had, as part of her ketubah every day from Yitzchak, he promised in their wedding vows to give her two goats every day. So this theme comes up again and again and again. And the healing of all of this happens at the very end of time when Mashiach comes and Esav and Yaakov reunite on Har Seir, which is where Esav lives. And Seir is, of course, another way of saying a goat. Okay, so far so good. Something else we're going to be exploring, which is a really, really deep idea, especially when we look at it through the lens of Christianity, and then we look at it through the lens of Hasidic Rebbes, right? Like a Pan or a Pidyon Nefesh. When we look at the idea of a Korban, when we look at the idea of kaparot, remember again, before Yom Kippur, there's that word again, kapara and pul and a para, right? And again, what are we saying when we do kaparot on money or on the chicken? We are saying that it's possible to transfer negative, destructive energy of pain and suffering and willingly transfer that onto another being, and very profoundly, I mean, again, it's a little rough for me because I'm a vegan and it's a little rough of a practice. But there seems to be, again, some hinting in these beautiful texts, that, again, I don't want to glorify this, right? But that both both around korbanot and also around kaparot, that the animals almost offer themselves from this loving place to take on the pain and the suffering of the human beings. And it sounds very much like, masochism and martyrdom. And yet there's also something stemming from this great love for being in service of the evolution of consciousness. And so we have all of these discussions like, can someone take on someone else's karmic debt? Sorry for the mixing of the religious terms, but right, can someone absorb the mida keneged mida of someone else's actions or non-actions that have had a negative and a detrimental effect, right? And again, how all the ways that we affect these energies. We affect energies through prayer, through tefillah, again, from the word lahit palel, which means to judge, and therefore also to somehow balance and see what's out of harmony in these energies. Giving tzedakah, again, regroups and rearranges the energy exchanges, right? So we say, for example, tzedakah tatzil mimavet, that if a person is has a certain energy debt, let's say, where they deserve to die because, again, their energy system has reached a certain level of stress or a certain lack of connection to the light, but they give tzedakah, there's something about that giving forth of that light, and then that goes into the universe and it keeps affecting and spreading light that can reverse their own system that was like, had reached a point of death, which by death, we always mean disconnection, right? There's a famous story about Rebbe Akiva's daughter and her wedding night, right? And she was Ke'ilu supposed to die, and she took out her hairpin and she put it in the wall. That's how the woman used to save their hairpins. And in the morning, right, she saw that she had pierced this huge, big poisonous snake that was Ke'ilu going to bite her. And Rebbe Akiva or her husband asked her, like, what did you do yesterday? And then she had this whole story of how she gave tzedakah, right? And so it's not just like a cute story, like, oh, give charity and do good deeds and you'll be saved. I mean, there is that in its most real sense, which is the flows of energy, right? How energy flows and how destructive energies and healing and connective energies work with each other, right? So, okay, good. So maybe I'll just pause there and see if anybody has a question. I'll open the chat in case anybody has a question. And then we can just go into the text. Okay, any questions? Anybody? Okay, so just a reminder that we're in Likutei Halachot, Hilchot Tefillin, Halacha Vav, Seif Kaf.
Sorry, interrupting. I do have a question. You just mentioned something about the tohu and the tikun, and I didn't exactly understand how it connected.
Connected it to the goats, you're saying?
Yeah, like.
Well, I mean, okay, so because we're saying that we're trying to find the sweet spot between the polarities, right? Between different kinds of energy. And remember that, like, that Esav and Yaakov are called the two goats, right? And part of why they're the two goats. Now, again, just kind of remembering that halachically, these two goats, particularly in the Mikdash, like around Yom Kippur, they had to look from the outside exactly alike. It's not like one goat was brown and one goat was white. They had to look so alike that they couldn't have 2 hairs difference between them, so that you couldn't tell the difference between them from the outside. And that this is the whole point of the pur, okay? So the only way that they would determine, one goat would be for Yud Ke Vav Ke, and it would be brought, all the way into the Beit HaMikdash, and the other goat would be Azazel, right? So, but here was the thing, and this is how it gets very close to Purim. It's not like you didn't know which goat was supposed to go where, right? And we didn't know what Hashem's will was, because the two goats look so close that it really looks from the outside that either goat could really be, so to speak, the good goat. Okay, hold on, just bear with me. Okay, and the only way that we would know is that the Kohen Gadol would write on one piece of parchment, I don't know if he wrote Le or he just wrote Yud He Vav He. And on the other piece of parchment, he would write Azazel, and they would be put into a box, and he would stick his hand in, and one parchment would go to one goat and one parchment would go to another goat. Okay, so that's a pur. I mean, that means it's like a lottery, right? And it means like, can you hear that it sounds like it's all up to chance? It doesn't really make sense. It doesn't really have any rhyme or reason. Like, why is this goat's destiny to end up in the Beit HaMikdash, the holiest place on earth? And why is this other goat's destiny to end up being pushed off a cliff, right? And it's really fascinating, because in English, right, we even have this expression in a family for the person where like all the family's problems kind of get dumped on that person, and that we call it a scapegoat, right? That's the expression of a scapegoat, where everybody in the family agrees to agree that this person is the problematic energy in the family. And usually it's not true, because again, a family is a whole system, right? But everybody kind of subconsciously agrees to blame this person for all the family's pain and problems, right? We call that a scapegoat. Another word for a scapegoat is the goat that gets sent to Azazel, right? It's the same system. So in terms of tohu v'tikun, I mean, we're going to say more as we go in, but so much to say. But uh-oh, we lost you, Ricky. Okay, I'm going to wait for Ricky to come back, if she comes back. And in the meantime, at least she got frozen. Okay, in the meantime, we'll just go into the text. Okay, so we are in okay, so we're talking about Esav and Yaakov, and we're talking about how when Esav and Yaakov met up after, hey, honey, you're back. Okay, so I'm going to go into the text. I think it will become clearer to you as we go on. Just remembering that Esav is holding these energies of tohu, and Yaakov is holding these energies of tikkun. Okay, and so after all of Yaakov's time in Padan Aram, and in Parshat Vayishlach, when he goes, and it's like, okay, the whole thing that's happening there on the inside, it's not just about Yaakov and Esav. It's talking about, is it time for the body and the soul to be able to come back together in a more harmonious way, without one taking over the other? Is it time? Another way we might understand these goats is the nefesh behemoth, which of course is going to be connected to tohu, right? And the nefesh eloki, which of course is going to be connected to tikkun, right? So when they come back together, really what we're checking is like, is the geula hashlema here, right? Have we done enough healing, and have we done enough elevating of consciousness that now body and soul can live together really harmoniously? Have we done enough healing? Have we done enough elevation of consciousness that now masculine and feminine can really figure out a way to harmonize with each other, right? These are all these questions. And the big question with the goats, right, is have we figured out how to be in our true power, not disempowered, in our true power, but what that looks like is channeling Hashem's power, not falling off the edge of ego power, which creates all the wars, right? And all the separation and all the fighting. So we're talking about the vision of Geula. We're talking about how does each human being learn how to access their true personal power, which is to become a vessel for Hashem's power, right? But not falling off the edges, like not saying, I'm a vessel for Hashem's power, but therefore I don't deserve to take up space. I don't deserve money. I don't deserve beauty. I don't deserve anything good because I'm just a vessel, right? Meaning like to go over tiny or to puff oneself up and be like, I am the center of the universe and my power is what dictates, what's going to happen in the world or in my family. So it's all these explorations this is basically the Geula Torah. This is the healing. Like, how do we learn to each be in our full power, but in a godly way, so that we're sharing from the most powerful place, our fullest power, but not the old power of prey and predator and victim perpetrator, but a new way of being fully empowered in service to Hashem and in service of harmony and collaboration. Does that kind of make sense? Okay. And all the ways where we kind of have gone to these extremes of giving away too much power, like giving away our power, even though it might have been coming from a desire for loving connection, right? And so it's this, we're balancing the left and the right. The left side is always going to be exploring the issues of power, right? How much space do I take up? How much do I exert my will? And how much do I bend my will to another's will, another person's or even God's will, right? So the two goats is the whole exploration around fully giving up power versus in like an overuse of power, and then finding this blended tiferet place of being really empowered in a very compassionate and healthy way. Stay tuned for Geula Live. Okay. So Rebbe Nachman continues, and he says, Ikar hapagam haya be'inyan hanal be'inyan pagam anava psula, right? So he is very deep. I've done this in my life a million times. He's saying there was something slightly off when Yaakov went to meet Esav again, right? After he was in Padan Aram, that he bowed to Esav. And it was off because on the one hand, he was trying to honor Esav and give Esav kavod, right? Bowing means I turn the space and the power over to you. That's what it means when we bow. We say like, Ani tachat shotoncha, right? I bow to your power. In other words, I make myself smaller so you can be bigger, right? And I'll take up less space. Bowing is about I take up less space in deference and honor that you should take up more space, right? And he says, as much as Yaakov's heart was in the right place, that he wanted shlemut and peace with Esav, we don't bow, we don't give our power away to forces of negativity. That's not called honoring. That's called giving God's power over to negative use of the power, right? And he says, so Yaakov Avinu, even though he wanted peace, he's asking us to explore where in our lives, when we want harmony and peace already, do we force the hour and we make ourselves very tiny and small, thinking like avoiding conflict and thinking that that will bring more peace, but it actually has the opposite effect because we're actually bowing to the abuse, like we're feeding the power of the out of control negative energy. Okay, so he says, and he says, yeah, you know why the two goats have to look exactly alike? Because it's practically impossible to weigh and measure these things of when to give in, when to stand our ground, when to push, right, azutik dusha, when to push a certain vision and use your power to push that vision, and when to back off and wait for God and let God work through you, right? He says these are such hair's breadth decisions, right? That it's practically impossible to get it right, if not impossible. And because on the one hand, we need to really, again, we're balancing two energies called yesh and ayin. Yesh means I really exist. I really have a body. I really have a mind. I really have a consciousness. I really have a name and an address in this world. And ayin is at the very same time, I know that it's all only God, and I'm some kind of illusion of light and shadow and matter and form coming together, passing through this world and going to leave. And he understand he's saying holding those two realities as true at the same time. So when I'm in the place of ayin, I'm very like it's holding like great humility that like there's so much I don't know. I'm less than a speck of a speck of a speck of consciousness, right? But he says, and that's called being ayin mamash. I don't take myself so seriously. I don't think I'm the center of the universe. I'm humble and I understand my true place in this whole story, right? Ve'afal pichen, says Rebbe Nachman, but at the same time, nonetheless, yihiyeh gibur chayil v'chazak me'od neged kol resha'im v'hamanoim. He says, at the same time that I know that I'm nothing, I also am mighty and powerful when it comes to destructive forces in the world. I will stand up to them. I will not just bow and say, I'm nothing, and this is all an illusion anyway, so why should I fight back against sex trafficking or child abuse, or because I'm just nothing and it's all a play of consciousness. No, in the face of wrongful energy and wrongful action in the world, I will not go into that place of false humbleness. I will be completely empowered and I will fight for what is right. And it's perfect for what's happening today, honestly. This is like the Torah. Okay. Ve'al ken, and therefore, David zachal imnucha achar Shaul. David HaMelech merited, right, the kingship. The kingship means the kingdom of heaven here on earth, right? Being able to find the proper balance of joining the spiritual and the material, body and soul, humbleness with right action and truth, right? He says, because because David Melech, he reached the sweet spot, right? Ki haya adanim ha'atzani k'shaya osek b'torah haya mitkasher k'tolat. Because when he was learning Torah, he put himself into this energy of a worm, right? And by a worm, we're saying like that in the face of vast, infinite wisdom and knowledge of Hashem, I know nothing. And so I show up being very humble, very open, very teachable, not sure that I'm right, not insisting that my perspective is the truth, right? That's how he would show up when he would learn Torah. But when he went out to war, he would become as hard as a tree. Hainu azuti kedusha, holy power, right? Being fully empowered by Hashem's power to keep the energies in the world holy and harmonious and truthful and really reflecting God's will in the world. Ve'anavash ze'ikar hashlemut. Okay, and he says, it's this really delicate kind of balance and energy of he would go out with all of this like holy strength and also holy humbleness at the same time when he was a warrior. Purim, and that's why the holiday is called Purim, al shem hapur shehu hagoral, which is the casting of the lots, right? Which is to know, how do we know when to apply which energy when? And again, this is like such a beautiful, perfect example that we're in right now, right? Of like, we're the people of compassion. We're supposed to be the people of the compassionate heart of the whole universe. And how do we respond to abnormal amounts of cruelty? What's the true compassionate response, right? How do we protect the hostages? How do we show up as being the compassionate voice in the world? But it's not compassionate to leave the hostages there, right? It's not compassionate to not guard our own borders of our own country, and so the citizens don't feel safe. And right, and that it's also so tricky. It's also not compassionate to kill a whole bunch of Palestinian people, especially women and children. Because you're saying it's kechuta se'ara. It's these are such almost practically impossible choices to make, and that's why it's called a pool, shehu hagoral, meaning, right. The whole secret of Purim is ad lo yada, is to get to the level of consciousness of like, you know what, Hashem, we're only human. We actually don't know exactly what your will is here. We're just trying to do our best to be vessels of balancing the energies of Chesed and Gvura in the world. Okay, so he says, Ve'ita shepurim bivchinat Yom Kippurim. So it's brought down in the holy books that Purim is an aspect of Yom Kippur, right? Because they both share the same word, pul. כי המן רצה לפגום בהגורל של יום הכיפורים, שאז נכנס הכהן הגדול לפני ולפנים, ששם עיקר הביטול. Okay, so he says, when the Kohen Gadol on Yom HaKippurim would go into the Kodesh Kadoshim, essentially it was an energy experience. And what the Kohen Gadol was doing was letting go of all identification with this story and this body and this time and this ego and this name, and I look like this and I look like that, and these are my gifts. And he was going past shedding all the identifying in with the outer me and I, that I think of myself like I am this body, and I am these thoughts, and I am these feelings, because we're not any of those things. Remember that the Holy Masters teach us that all of those things, right, are even our will to a certain extent, but certainly all of our thoughts, so all of our beliefs and all of our ideas. This is a very deep concept. And all of our emotions and all of our impulses and all of our desires and all of our actions in the world, ready? That's not the real us. That's called, in the language of the Tanya, levushin, garments, ways that we have to express the inner light. But it's not the real us. So our thoughts are not us. Isn't that weird? Because most of us identify in, this is me thinking a thought. No, it's not. There's a thought. And behind that, there's the real you. So he's trying to remind us that our thoughts is not the real us. Our feelings is not the real us. Our actions is not the real us. And he says, the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur, he manages to enter inside. We call it the Kodesh Kadoshim. In other words, real me, real infinite me. There's another way we can say that, which is the Nefesh Eloki, right? The divine light that dwells within me, the divine consciousness that dwells within me. So he says, on Yom Kippur, that's what the Kohen would do. The Kohen would go beyond all these false masks. That's why it's connected to Purim, because beyond all the costumes, right? Purim and Yom Kippur, beyond all the roles that we play in life, right? That we really identify with, and we really believe that this is real and this is us, right? Going beyond that. And he says, there's an energy in the world. Now, don't get confused with the person Haman. It's also, but it's much deeper than that. That there's an energy in the world called Haman. Now, remember, why was Haman so angry? Haman was so angry because everybody was giving him kavod, but except for Mordechai. And it brought out this murderous rage in him of like, not being seen and not being validated, not being liked, not being honored, not being given the space that he wanted, right? Not being given what? The power over everybody, that he can make everybody bow what? Not to him, to his will, right? This is the Haman energy. The Haman energy wants to take control and make life bow to our will, make our children bow to our will, make the person we love, or our husband, or we're dating, bow to our will, right? Make life. Now we want to have some compassion on that person, that Haman energy, because also the need to be so controlling is usually born from great fear. And we know this is true because we go back to the very roots of Haman Amalek, and right, and we remember that Timnah she's from Amalek, right? And she wanted to join Avram Avinu's house. And she wanted to be connected to this holiness and this kedusha. And long story short, Avraham didn't accept her, and Yitzchak didn't accept her. And right, the bottom line is she ended up becoming a Pilagesh to Esav, and they ended up having Eliphaz. And then, say the Meforshim, she ended up having relations with her son Eliphaz, which ended up giving birth to Amalek, right? But meaning that why are the Meforshim telling us this whole story? That it was actually birthed from, she wanted to be connected to holiness, and she felt the shame of rejection and being told that she wasn't good enough or holy enough, right? And Eliphaz saw his mother rejected, and their son that they create together is like the Venahafahu. It's like the flip side of that energy that wants connection so badly, but feels shamed and rejected and abandoned. And so it turns into a destructive energy to act against and hurt and harm the person that we believe wounded our kavod by not wanting us or by rejecting us or by abandoning us or not thinking that we were, good enough or whatever, right? So that's that we have to remember that's the source of the Amalek energy. Okay, so he says, Ve'al ken huzhav v'chol adam lo yeh be'ohel moed v'chulei. Right, so there's a halacha that nobody could just walk into the Ohel Moed whenever they wanted. Ki nichnas lenekudat ha'even shtiya shehu b'chinat sela yishkon v'yitlonen k'mo she'amar Razal shezeu b'chinat anava. And so beautiful, he says, what's inside the Kodesh Kadoshim, right? And he says, because when you go to the Kodesh Kadoshim, inside is the Even Hashtiyar, the foundation stone, right? Or many of the holy masters teach that from this stone Hashem created. It was actually the makom of the original tzimtzum, the original contracting of Hashem's light. And if it was where Hashem then started to create Adam and Chava from, and all of creation from this place. And so then, of course, it's going to be the pinnacle or the heart of this energy called anava, right? Of humble awareness of my place in the whole grand scheme of things, but not anava psula, not thinking that I'm nothing, but also not thinking that I'm everything, right? And holding those two polarities, like my will is not everything, right? That's when the Haman energy gets out of control. But also my will does matter, right? Anava psula means my will all the time is nothing, and therefore I'm just constantly giving over my power to anybody and everybody around me. First of all, because I want to be liked or I want to be approved of. That's the flip side of the Haman energy, right? Or maybe I have a fear of conflict, or maybe I'm scared I'll be abandoned. And right, so we're trying to find this spot, and he says, and it exists inside the Kodesh Kadoshim. It exists inside the Even Hashtiyah, this beautiful, the heart of all true humbleness in the world, this energy called anava, which is like this beautiful, harmonious place. And I as a musician, often experience it as the humbleness of when you're part of a symphony or an orchestra, and you're playing your part very beautifully, but you're not playing louder and over all the other musicians, like drowning them out, but you're also not playing so softly that nobody can hear you, right? You're taking your true place and you're making your true contribution. And the kavanah is to add to the beauty of the whole collective piece of music and experience of the music, right? It's the kavanah is not to shine the brightest amongst, let's say all the other violinists, right? And the kavanah isn't to crawl in and where no one can hear you playing. The kavanah is that you're adding, right, to the beauty of the entire piece of music by your right place. So you're coming and you're playing in tune and you're playing with the deepest depths of feeling, but you're also simultaneously harmonizing with all the other musicians, and you're not playing faster or slower than them, and you're not drowning them out, right? So that's this beautiful, beautiful, energetic example and experience of what true anava is, right? Finding your place and offering your contribution in the most beautiful way, in the most harmonious way that increases the pleasure and the joy of connection and connectivity for every person, both in the symphony playing their instrument and everybody who's listening to the music. So, right, so there's this big increase and outpouring of connection and pleasure for everybody, which opens people's hearts, which allows more connection and more desire for harmonious connection, right? And it opens us this way, and it also opens us this way, right? Where we're like, wow, what kind of creator created beings that can collaborate and create such beauty together, and such wondrous beauty that's so healing and gives us so much pleasure and so much joy and so much awe. Like we're, if you've ever heard like a really amazing symphony live and you're just like, wow. And I always end up falling in love with God, because it's like, wow, like look how Hashem built us and created us when we really put our power into the right places and in the right balance, right? Look what we can create. Okay. So he says that energy, you can find it most in the entire world, in the Even Hashtiya, in the Kodesh Kadoshim, right? And again, we might understand that because that's where Hashem herself, drew back in order to make space for creation to come out. So of course it's going to be like the heart of humbleness, because the whole creator of the world made a choice to take up less space so that others, meaning all the other creatures, including human beings, right? All the other creatures could come into being and take up space and inhabit this world, right? So it's the source of anava. As we mentioned in the above Torah, al pasuk ze ayen shama, aval hakohen hagadol lo haya yachol lichnos l'sham ki im al yedei hagoral shenatan al shnei asirim. He says, but before the Kohen Gadol could go into this energy center, right, of the very heart of I exist, I don't exist, my power matters, really I'm nothing, right? He first had to, says Rebbe Nachman, he first had to perform this service with the two goats. Okay, this is how we get back to the two goats. Goral echad LaHashem, one lot or portion or power, connection to power, that all the power belongs to Hashem and all the power only comes from Hashem. V'goral echad LaAzazel, and another goat, right, of where the power ends up, so to speak, in the hands of Azazel, right? In other words, all of Hashem's power, but being used in the service of destruction and cruelty and disconnection and what we might call evil or darkness. ביום הכיפורים צריכים לתשובה שעל ידי זה זוכים לחיים נצחיים שהם בחינת ענווה. It says because the purification process that's happening on Yom Kippur is this purification process that we call teshuvah, is to return to true source, is to return back to the awareness of our true self and our true place in the world, right? Which is going to inspire within us a great humbleness and a great humility, right? When we come back into proper seeing and proper connection with power, and we're like, wow, really Hashem is really giving us everything as a gift. Every breath, like I don't earn my breath. I don't earn my life, and it did nothing to earn this. I didn't earn health. I didn't earn, having a certain type of consciousness or brain or children or, right, shefa or any of that. That's all given to me, right, from Hashem's treasury of unearned gifts. And it's meant to inspire in me, not shame. It's meant to inspire in me anava, like how much does God love me? how much does God look at all these incredible gifts, right? That I maybe didn't earn, and maybe I don't believe that I even deserve, but obviously Hashem does think I deserve it because he keeps giving me all of this goodness. And that's part of the healing of Yom Kippur, like to come back into like, like Alice in Wonderland, we said, right? Like my right size, not overinflated and not collapsed, not I'm nothing in the sense of, therefore, I don't have self-respect, and therefore I don't have dignity, and therefore I'm not worth protecting, and I'm not even worth keeping myself alive for, chas v'shalom, right? That's what he calls all the way swinging to the left, or called anava psula, a false idea of anava, like, right? Like I should never do self-care. I should never, I don't deserve anything good. I don't deserve anything pretty, or I don't deserve kindness, right? Because what am I anyway? I'm nothing. He says, no, that's a distortion, right? And then on the other side is like puffing myself up and trying to impose my views and my will and my power on anything and everything, on myself and on my family and on my children and on my parents and on my community. And right, he says that's the other side. That's what we call that ga'ava, right? We call it also bechinat Haman, to think I can force other people to give me love, or force other people to change, right? To bow to me, right? Remember, he was so mad because Mordechai didn't bow to him, meaning Mordechai didn't agree to see life the way he saw life. Mordechai didn't agree to change for Haman, right? And that part of us that's like, you must do it my way. I'm the one in control here. If you would only change, we could have this great relationship, right? That's also an imbalance of this energy. ועל ידי זה נתקפלים כל ההבנות שהן בחינת גאות סיטרא דמותא. And he says, and through this, there's a beautiful purification process that happens. And he says, right, all of the imbalances, all of our illusions, all of our imbalances around connection get healed. And that's called fixing the energy of Sitra Damota. Sitra Damota means the side of death, but it doesn't always mean physical death. When the Holy Masters speak about death, they also mean endings, like the end of relationships, disconnection, hatred, jealousy, competition, ayin hara, right? All those energies of separation, right? That separate us from each other, that make us scared of each other, or imposing, right? Or making others scared of us, right? And all those energies that keep us from united and harmonious connection. Okay. Ukmo Shamar Razal, as the Holy Masters teach, V'over al pesha l'she'elit l'mi shemesim atzmo kashilaim. Okay, so he says there's again, there's something about Yom Kippur, and again, something that we're going to be talking a lot about in this whole journey, even between Esav and Yaakov, the two goats, right? It's talking about the energy of forgiveness in the world, right? And it's interesting, right? Because both Yom Kippur and Purim are actually both times for forgiveness. A lot of people don't know this, but in the inner teachings, right? Before Yom Kippur, we ask people face to face, and it's the experience of forgiveness through yira, right? Through awe, or through fear, right? Like we ask forgiveness, or we try to heal things that we did. It's actually from a lower energy, from fear of the consequences to our own life, or karmic debt, or whatever you want to call it. And on Purim, people never talk about this, which is so weird, but Purim is actually a day of higher forgiveness, right? And part of the reason that we wear masks and part of the reason that we don't give mishloach manot face to face is because it's a message of, I would like to re-enter connection with you. I may not have the words, and we don't say that. Part of the reason why Purim isn't known as a day of forgiveness is because it's hidden, right? But when we're sending someone mishloach manot, it's a bid for connection, right? I'm saying, I'm reaching out to you. I'm giving you gifts. I'm giving you presents, right? All the mitzvahs of the day. But, especially matanot evyonim, the gifts to the poor, and the Suda, again, is to gather and connect, and even to get lishtakel, right? Even to drink wine it's meant to connect us. Like, we're all vulnerable together. We're all letting our guard down together. We're all agreeing to be vulnerable with each other in this state where we give up control. That's how we bring down Haman on Purim, is giving up control, right? And we agree to come together in these shared spaces and let ourselves be seen by getting drunk, right? It doesn't have to be, tons of alcohol. There's other ways to share vulnerability, but it's giving up control, adelo yada, right? And but with the intention of repairing relationships, repairing our hearts, repairing the misunderstandings between us. And again, that's a kapara. That's, again, you can hear the switch out of the energy, right? Just totally switching out any kind of dark or separating energy by giving gifts all day, right? Gifts of food and gifts of money, and eating and drinking together, and connecting, right? And that has the effect of getting rid of what we call the sitra demota, right? The side of death, the side of loneliness, the side of rejection, the side of disconnection. Okay, so we have 4 minutes. So I'm just thinking, wait, let me just see if there's a sentence that I could pause at that would make more sense to pause. One sec. Okay, yeah, I'll just say these like next couple of sentences. So he says, "Ve'al ken hayat tzarich hakohen hagadol lichnos lifnai v'lifnim shesham ikar habitul kanal. Aval כשרוצים לזכות לענווה, צריכים להיזהר מענווה פסולה." He says, but when we want to reach this energy of humbleness, we need to be very careful to not take it into the place of shadow. Dahainu, that is to say, right, Rebbe Nachman says, what do we mean by this, by false anava? Shelo yeh atzel v'roa mazal, right? To not become lazy and like a schlemazel, right? To not think like, I'm nothing and therefore I don't deserve to clean my house, and I don't deserve to wear clean clothes, and I don't deserve to look nice, and I don't deserve to take care of myself or buy myself some flowers for the Shabbos table. Like, he's saying, don't go to the other extreme where you think anava means that you have no self-worth, that you have no dignity, that you have no self-respect, because to hear those words, to be nothing, and to think that therefore it means that you're a nothing in the sense that you don't deserve a safe home, or you don't deserve kindness, or you don't deserve, right? He says, no, that's what we call anava psula. That's a distortion, because it's ultimately not going to be in service of the healing of the whole if you're holding yourself in a place where you don't deserve healing and light and goodness, right? It's that, like, gava is when you think it's only you, and real anava is to want this goodness and harmony in everybody and everything, including yourself. And anava psula is to take yourself out of the picture and maybe even want goodness and healing and holiness and shefa for everybody else, but not to think that you deserve it. He says that's called anava psula. That's it can't work like that. It's again like back to the symphony where the person's like not playing their piece because they're nothing and they don't deserve, and they're playing on a broken violin with one string because right, they don't deserve to have a nice violin. No, like the whole orchestra will suffer if that person goes into that place of false anava. Can you hear that? A little bit. Okay, any questions or comments? Questions? Brachas? No? Okay. Okay, hold on a second. I'm going to stop the recording.